The smell of cinnamon and nutmeg drifted through my small apartment as I carefully pressed my best dress shirt. My hands weren't as steady as they used to be, but today was special. Thanksgiving. The one day when family comes together, when old grudges are forgotten, and when love fills every corner of the room. I'd been looking forward to this for weeks. At 83, I didn't have many things to anticipate anymore. My Margaret had been gone for 5 years now, and the silence in this apartment could be deafening. But today, I'd be surrounded by my children, my grandchildren, the laughter echoing off restaurant walls while we shared stories over turkey and stuffing. The mirror showed an old man trying to look dignified. My gray hair was combed neatly, my face clean-shaven despite the tremor in my left hand. I wanted to look good for them. I wanted my grandson Jake to be proud to introduce me to his friends if they happened to stop by. The phone had been quiet all morning. No calls asking what I'd like to drink or if I needed help getting there, but that was fine. Jake had promised to pick me up at 2 o'clock sharp. He was always reliable, my grandson. A bit distant lately, sure, but blood is blood. Family takes care of family. I checked my watch, 1:45 p.m. Just 15 minutes until I'd see their faces light up when I walked through those doors. Jake's car pulled up 12 minutes late, engine idling impatiently in the cold November air. I locked my apartment door with fumbling fingers and made my way down the stairs, each step careful and deliberate. The last thing I needed was a fall on Thanksgiving. "Hey, Grandpa," Jake muttered as I settled into the passenger seat. The heater was barely warm, and he didn't help me with my seatbelt like he used to when he was younger. His eyes stayed glued to his phone, thumbs flying across the screen. "Beautiful day for Thanksgiving, isn't it?" I said, trying to fill the silence. Snow was beginning to fall in gentle flakes, coating the world in pristine white. "Remember when you were little, how you used to catch snowflakes on your tongue?" He glanced up briefly, irritation flashing across his features. "Yeah, Grandpa. I remember." His tone suggested he'd rather forget. The radio played soft jazz as we drove through familiar neighborhoods. I watched families hurrying along sidewalks, carrying covered dishes and bottles of wine, everyone heading somewhere warm, somewhere they belonged. "So who all's going to be there today?" I asked, genuinely excited to hear about cousins and relatives I hadn't seen in months. Jake's jaw tightened. "The usual crowd." He turned the music up louder, clearly done with conversation. Something cold settled in my stomach, and it wasn't the November air seeping through the car windows. This wasn't the warm family reunion I'd been imagining. We pulled up to Marcello's Italian restaurant, its warm golden windows glowing against the gray afternoon sky. Cars filled the parking lot, and I could see silhouettes of people inside, laughing and gesturing over plates of food. My heart lifted slightly. This was going to be wonderful, but Jake didn't turn off the engine. He didn't even put the car in park. "Okay, Grandpa, here's the thing." His voice was flat, matter-of-fact, like he was discussing the weather. "There's actually not enough room at the table today. Mom planned for a specific number and, well, you're going to have to make other arrangements." The words hit me like ice water. "What do you mean, other arrangements?" "It's Thanksgiving, Jake. It's family dinner." He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Look, I'm sorry. I know it's not ideal, but there's just no space. Maybe next year we can plan better." The snow was falling heavier now, coating the windshield in white. Inside the restaurant, I could see the warm glow of families gathered around tables, sharing meals and making memories. "Jake, please. I've been looking forward to this for weeks." I dressed up. "Grandpa, you need to get out. I'm already late and they're waiting for me." My grandson, my own flesh and blood, was asking me to step out into the snow on Thanksgiving Day. At 83 years old, the betrayal cut deeper than the November wind that would soon bite through my coat. With shaking hands, I unbuckled my seatbelt. "Jake, how could you do this to me?" But he was already looking at his phone again. "I'll call you later, okay? Maybe we can get lunch sometime next week." I stepped out into the falling snow, and before I could even close the door properly, he drove away. The red taillights disappeared around the corner, leaving me standing alone on the sidewalk, snow beginning to accumulate on my shoulders. The wind cut through my coat like it was made of paper. Snow swirled around my feet, already beginning to soak through my dress shoes. I stood there for a moment, watching other families hurry past me into the warmth of restaurants and shops, their arms linked, their voices filled with laughter. Not one person stopped to ask if I was okay. I started walking, though I wasn't sure where I was going. Each step felt heavier than the last, My legs, already weak from age, began to tremble from both cold and exhaustion. The sidewalk grew slippery, and I had to grip a lamppost to keep from falling. A young couple rushed past me, the woman's heels clicking against the wet pavement. They were dressed for dinner, probably heading to their own family gathering. The man glanced at me briefly, an old man shuffling through the snow, but they kept walking. My breath came out in white puffs, and I could no longer feel my fingertips. How had it come to this? How had I raised a grandson who could abandon his grandfather on Thanksgiving Day? Where had I gone wrong? The snow was falling so heavily now that I could barely see 10 feet ahead. My dress shirt, the one I'd pressed so carefully that morning, was soaked through. I needed to find shelter, needed to get warm before I collapsed right here on the street. That's when I saw it, the soft golden glow of a restaurant sign through the swirling snow, warmth, safety, a place where I could sit down and gather my strength. I stumbled toward the light, each step a small victory against the bitter cold. The door chime announced my arrival as I stepped into blessed warmth. The smell hit me immediately. Garlic, herbs, fresh bread baking in stone ovens. The sound of clinking glasses and happy conversation filled the air, along with the gentle notes of Italian music playing overhead. I stood in the entryway, snow dripping from my coat onto the hardwood floor, trying to catch my breath and let the feeling return to my frozen fingers. "Mr. Henderson." Maria, the evening manager, rushed toward me with concern etched across her face. "What are you doing here? And why are you all wet?" I looked around the restaurant, my restaurant. The one I'd owned quietly for 15 years, ever since I'd helped the original owner, Tony Marcello, avoid bankruptcy. Tony had been like a son to me, and when his heart gave out 3 years ago, his family had begged me to keep the place running. I'd agreed, but asked them to keep my ownership quiet. I'd never wanted the attention. The warm lighting cast everything in a golden glow. Families sat around white-clothed tables, sharing antipasto and wine. The brick walls were lined with photographs of Italy, and fresh flowers adorned each table. It was beautiful, successful, profitable, and completely mine. I just needed somewhere warm, I told Maria, my voice still shaky from the cold. She guided me to a quiet corner booth, the one I sometimes used when I came to review the books. "Let me get you some hot coffee and something to eat." "You look terrible, if you don't mind me saying." As I settled into the comfortable leather seat, warmth gradually returning to my bones, I gazed around at the bustling restaurant. Every table was full, every customer smiling and satisfied. The register rang steadily as families celebrated together, and then I saw them. There, at the large round table in the center of the dining room, sat my entire family. Jake was there, of course, no longer wearing the sullen expression he'd had in the car. He was laughing, gesturing broadly with his hands as he told some story to his cousins. My daughter Sarah sat beside him, radiant in her burgundy dress, raising a glass of wine and a toast. They'd pushed 2 tables together to accommodate everyone, 12 people in total. The table groaned under the weight of their feast. Antipasto platters, bowls of pasta, plates of ossobuco, fresh bread, bottles of wine. They'd ordered the full family-style dinner, the most expensive option on our menu. Jake was holding court, his voice carrying across the restaurant. "Don't worry about the bill, everyone. This is my treat. Nothing's too good for family on Thanksgiving. My family. The same family that apparently had no room for one more chair, no space for the patriarch who had helped raise half of them." I watched Jake's younger sister Emma laugh at something he said, saw my son-in-law David pat Jake on the back appreciatively. None of them looked toward my corner booth. None of them seemed to wonder where I was spending my Thanksgiving. Maria appeared at my elbow with a steaming cup of coffee and a plate of bruschetta. "Your grandson's family is here tonight," she whispered, following my gaze. "Big celebration. They've been here almost an hour already." "I know," I said quietly, wrapping my hands around the warm ceramic mug. "Should I send over your regards?" I watched Jake take another sip of wine, probably our finest Chianti at $30 a glass. "Not just yet, Maria, not just yet." I spent the next 20 minutes sipping coffee and watching my family enjoy their feast. They ordered dessert, tiramisu all around, plus cannoli for the children. Jake added another bottle of wine, this one even more expensive than the last. When Maria passed by again, I caught her sleeve gently. "I need you to do something for me," I said quietly. "When they ask for the check, I want you to handle it personally." Her eyebrows rose in curiosity. "Of course, Mr. Henderson, what would you like me to do?" "Present the bill to Jake as usual. Let him make his grand gesture. But before he can pay, I want you to inform the table that the meal has already been covered by the owner of the restaurant. Understanding dawned in Maria's eyes, and a small smile played at the corners of her mouth. And then you point to me. She nodded once professionally. It will be my pleasure, sir. I watched her glide away between the tables, graceful and efficient. Around my family's table, the laughter grew louder as the wine took effect. Jake had his arm around his girlfriend now, whispering something in her ear that made her giggle. The snow continued to fall outside the windows, but inside, the restaurant hummed with warmth and life. Soon, very soon, my grandson would learn what it truly meant to be left out in the cold. Maria approached their table with the leather portfolio containing their check, her expression perfectly neutral and professional. I could see the total from my corner booth, $437 not including tip. Jake's grand gesture was about to become very expensive. Here's your check, Maria said pleasantly, setting the portfolio beside Jake's wine glass. I hope everyone enjoyed their dinner. A chorus of compliments rose from the table. Absolutely delicious. The best osso buco I've ever had. We'll definitely be back. Jake opened the portfolio with a flourish, his chest puffed out with pride. I could see him calculating the tip in his head, probably planning to round up to an even 500 to really impress his family. Like I said, everyone, this is on me. Nothing's too good for... Actually, sir, Maria interrupted smoothly, I need to let you know that your entire meal this evening has already been taken care of. The table fell silent. Jake looked up from the check, confusion creasing his brow. What do you mean, taken care of? The owner of the restaurant has personally covered your bill tonight. He wanted your family to have a wonderful Thanksgiving dinner. My daughter Sarah leaned forward, intrigued. That's incredibly generous. We should thank him. Is he here tonight? Maria's smile was perfectly polite as she raised her hand and pointed directly at me, sitting in my corner booth with my coffee cup and my snow-dampened coat. He's right over there. 12 pairs of eyes turned toward my corner booth. The recognition hit Jake's face like a physical blow. First confusion, then shock, then something that looked almost like fear. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. David went pale. The younger cousins looked between their parents and me, sensing the sudden tension but not understanding it. I stood slowly, my joints stiff from sitting in wet clothes, and walked toward their table. Every conversation in the restaurant seemed to quiet as other diners sensed the drama unfolding. Hello, family, I said, my voice carrying clearly in the sudden silence. I hope you're enjoying your Thanksgiving dinner. Dad, Sarah whispered, her voice stricken. What are you doing here? Jake said you couldn't make it tonight. I looked directly at Jake, who couldn't meet my eyes. His girlfriend shifted uncomfortably beside him, and I could see the wheels turning in her head as she began to piece together what was happening. Actually, Sarah, Jake drove me here tonight. Picked me up right on time, just like he promised. But when we arrived, he informed me that there wasn't room at the table for one more person. Then he put me out of his car and drove away, leaving me to stand in the snow. The silence was deafening. Someone's fork clattered against their plate. At my age, in this weather, your son abandoned me on the street, on Thanksgiving. But here's what Jake didn't know. I gestured around the restaurant, at the warm lighting and the full tables and the efficient staff. This is my restaurant. Has been for 15 years. Every bite you've eaten tonight, every glass of wine you've enjoyed, every moment of warmth and comfort, it all belongs to me. Jake's face had gone from pale to red to pale again. Grandpa, I didn't know. You didn't know because you never bothered to ask what I've been doing with my life. You assumed I was just a lonely old man with nothing to offer your perfect family dinner. The rest of the restaurant had gone completely quiet now, other diners openly watching the confrontation unfold. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out my wallet, extracting a crisp business card that read, Henderson Family Holdings, owner, Marcello's Italian Restaurant. I placed it on the table in front of Jake. The next time you decide someone isn't worthy of a seat at your table, I said quietly, you might want to make sure you're not sitting at theirs. The shame on my family's faces was complete now. Sarah was crying quietly. David stared at his hands, and even the children seemed to understand that something terrible had happened. I turned to Maria, who had been watching the entire scene with professional discretion. Please prepare a to-go bag with a full Thanksgiving dinner. Make sure there's plenty of turkey and stuffing. Of course. Mr. Henderson, I'll be taking it home to eat alone, the way my grandson intended for me to spend this holiday. Jake finally found his voice, broken and small. Grandpa, please. I'm sorry. I didn't think— No, Jake, you didn't think. You didn't think about how it would feel to be thrown away by your own family. You didn't think about loyalty or respect, or what it means to honor the people who came before you. I pulled on my coat, still damp from the snow but warming now from the heat of righteous anger. I've spent my whole life building something to leave behind for my family. This restaurant employs 37 people, feeds hundreds of families every week, and has been profitable every single year I've owned it. But more than that, it's been a place where families come together, where they celebrate and connect and remember what matters. The snow had stopped falling outside. Through the windows I could see the streets beginning to clear. You all can finish your dinner. It's paid for. But when you're done, I want you to think about what family really means. And Jake, I looked directly at my grandson one last time. Don't call me for lunch next week. When you're ready to apologize like a man, when you're ready to understand what you did tonight, then we'll talk. I walked out into the crisp night air, carrying my bag of Thanksgiving dinner and my dignity intact. Behind me, I could hear quiet sobs from the table that had no room for one more. The snow crunched under my feet as I made my way home, but I wasn't cold anymore. Sometimes the best revenge isn't elaborate or cruel. It's simply showing people exactly who they really are and letting them live with what they see. Family isn't just about blood. It's about showing up. It's about making room at the table. And it's about remembering that the people who love us deserve better than being left out in the cold.